with special guest Lyle Corn Product Manager for Latham Seeds. So last week we talked about how delayed emergence plays out in the way ears develop late season. So this week we're back with a similar topic to talk about how different planting depths can also affect that development. So Lyle, what can you tell us about what you're seeing in the fields this year at different depths?
So what we've been doing the last couple of years is planting at different depths just to show the effect of root development and ear development. And if you remember any of the conversations I've had with you, there's 5 sets of nodal roots on a corn plant, and our goal is to have all 5 of those in the soil. That's your anchoring system, your moisture uptake, and where the nutrients come from. So it's best to have all 5 of those in the soil profile, so planting depth is real key to make sure that happens.
Okay, so why is it then so important to develop a good root system on a corn plant?
Yeah, so you want to develop that good root system, so like I said, you have anchoring to hold the plant up if you get some wind or some of those kind of things. It also helps in insect management, rootworm feeding. The more roots you have in the ground, if you have some light feeding, you have less injury there. And you want to have, especially in a stress year like we saw in 2021, you want to have as many roots in the ground trying to capture moisture and nutrients as you can. And we see from some of the shallow planting this year, there's some great effects of that. We have some plants here that were done right here on our Latham Research Farm, and also some pictures that one of our RSMs took in a field that was planted in some trouble. So really neat information. Last year's data and what the RSM did, those are on flex-eared hybrids. This is an example of fixed ears, so we can see the differences both ways.
Okay, so why don't you show us then how it's played out in the various scenarios?
Yeah, so this little plant here, this is rootless corn, so this was planted way too shallow. It was only planted about 3/4 of an inch, and you can see we have very, very poor root development. A little dried out, but still an example. Here's an example of one that was planted about 2 inches, and we see a nice cross section where we can see all of the nodal roots on there, but we're still exposing that top set of nodal roots to Mother Nature, heat and desiccation and stuff, so we don't see the full growth on them as we would like to. I have a couple cross sections here that we have where we can see this one here was the 2.5 inch planting, and we can see the nice planting depth right there. We can see the soil profile and doing a nice job for us there. Here we planted one at 1.25 inches, and we can see how the root is much less in the soil, and we're seeing some issues with development overall.
Okay, so that's on the roots. What about on the ears?
So when we see that, that translates to yield, right? So on a flex-eared hybrid, you're going to see length extension. You'll see that in the pictures. You also see some girth extension. On a fixed-eared hybrid, it's mainly in the girth. So we have 2 examples, the 1.25 on the right and the 2.5 on the left. We're missing 2 rows of grain on the ears on the right. And if we go back to a couple weeks ago when Phil did his video about how we get yield and how we calculate yield, 2 rows of grain are super important on every ear. So we'll see consistency in ear size, ear development, overall plant health, and disease protection as well.
Okay, some really great tips. Is there anything you'd like to wrap up with, leave our listeners with before we take off today?
Just a reminder, this video today and last week's are 2 really important things to revisit next spring prior to planting, so I encourage everybody to do that.
Okay, great tip. We do file all of these videos on lathamseeds.com if you go to the field position. If you want to review them for next spring, they'll be filed there. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. We'll be back next week with another episode.